Robert, thank you for taking the time for us.
You're very welcome.
Yeah,
I've been looking forward to this.
Yes?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
We made a consultant training, me and a few other scouts, we made it, and we have now almost 500 consultants worldwide.
Wow.
As volunteers to work with the NSOs to make the program, to make actually for the kids it's better.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. And I thought in that whole module we need the logical levels. As for me they're very valuable, but they're also sometimes hard to grasp for people.
Sure.
So for me, one of the questions I have, could you tell shortly how you came about with it and how you use them if you are consulting yourself?
Sure. First of all, also just let me say I'm just really happy to be doing something for the Scouts. I was in the United States, I was an Eagle Scout.
Wow.
So was the kind of reached the highest level. And it was in the Scouts that I learned to do most of the things that I'm doing professionally today. How to be a leader, how to work with teams. Because I was, when I was in the Scouts, I wasn't the biggest guy. I certainly wasn't, the fastest or the strongest. But one of the things I noticed working with Scouts is that, for example, the guys who were the bullies in class couldn't be good leaders because you can't bully somebody to do something that they don't know how to do, right? And so, leading people in teams and being able to set a goal and being able to get people who have different competences to work together. Those are some of the things that are the bedrock of my life. So I'm really happy to be contributing to the Scouts. And I think this notion of the different levels is really important certainly as a consultant. And there's 6 levels, and they do relate to each other. And so the first one that I think it's the simplest and the most concrete is this notion of environment. So as a consultant, if we're, usually you're looking for what's the current state of what's going on, what's going to be the desired state, where are we trying to go? And that's going to involve the environment, or also potentially a change in the environment. Maybe our environment is this way, but we need to organize it that way, because our environment is a big influence on what we're able to do. So it's kind of the concrete aspect, and there are both results that we try to achieve in the environment. I mean, I'm thinking of the Scouts, one of the Scouts, so if you need to build a fire or you set up a camp, right? Well, that's in the environment, right? There's a particular context, and the environment's going to determine what you can do, how you can do it. So that's always kind of the ground. But then, of course, in order to respond to the environment, you need to behave. So this next level is, actions. And within the same environment, there are different possibilities of how you could respond, what you can do. And so that determines what you're able to achieve in the environment. And again, if I think about being a consultant or also working with teams, the question is, if we want to get this result in the environment, what do we have to do, right? It's not going to just happen. We've got to physically do things, and we have to coordinate what we do. So that's the behavior level. Now then, of course, those are both very concrete, and they're pretty obvious, right, to a consultant, to a leader. Now then it begins to become this part where it's less visible, and this has to do with the third level that we call the capabilities.
Yes.
And like I was saying, different people have different capabilities, right? So some people are able to do, take certain actions to do things easily. They know how to do it. They've learned it. Others haven't. They're inexperienced. They don't have the know-how. They don't have the knowledge. They don't have the strategy. So there's this level of a kind of, we sort of make the analogy to sort of the software, right? So I got to program the know-how. And as a consultant, that becomes really important as well. What's the present state of know-how?
Oh yeah.
What's the desired state of know-how? And then what do we need to do in order to teach people, train people, explain to people, show people, so that they can actually do the behavior that's required?
Yes.
So we say that's the how level.
Yep.
Then a really important part, and it's kind of like I was talking about this idea that you can't bully people to do things they don't know how to do. But also, the other thing about bullying people is if you force them to do something, it doesn't mean they're going to want to do it and do it well. So this is this fourth level that we put in a kind of a pyramid shape, because the environment is big. There's many environments. We have fewer behaviors, but we can do the same thing. We have to set up camp in different environments, for example.
Yeah.
But then the know-how part is going to guide how we do that, how we do what we do. But this fourth level is about the why. Why are we doing it that way? Yes. And I think one of the things that I also learned from Scouts is not just a lot of know-how. I had a bunch of merit badges and learned a lot of different things.
Otherwise, you never become an Eagle Scout.
You can't be an Eagle. But beyond the know-how is the values.
Yes.
So why? What's important? Even sort of, so to be able to be prepared, to be able to be, to have integrity, to be authentic. But we call this fourth level, it's values, but it also has to do with belief. Belief in yourself, belief in your team, belief in what you're doing, belief in where you're going. Yeah. So it's why we say it's the answer to the question why. Why should I do it this way? Well, because of these reasons and because this is important. Here's the priorities. And so as a consultant, too, that becomes really significant. In order to be able to do what needs to be done, certain things have a priority. Yeah. There has to be certain values of how it's done. What kind of quality is going to be done. Safety. Yeah. Mutual benefit, etc. And so this is different than the know-how, and it's different than the action, and it certainly is different than the environment. But it's going to determine a lot about how things are done and in what way they're done. Then there's a fifth level that we say, okay, and I think this is really important, and especially as a consultant, but even when we talk about a scout, right? A scout is not just a capability, it's not just a behavior, it's not just something that you do in a certain place. It certainly involves a set of values, but it's also an identity. Yeah. Right?
For me it is.
Yeah. That's true. And that's an important thing, by the way, that when you take it as an identity, it becomes part of you. It's not something that you have to think about or try to do. It's part of who you are. And that identity, and it's the important thing about identity, we say identity is characterized by a role and a mission. Values are not about role and mission. They're about motivation, and they're also often about permission or what is important to do. But identity is about who am I and what am I here for. And so I think as a consultant, that is also really important, because some changes, the most trivial changes just involve a change of environment, but most changes are certainly going to involve change in behavior, which means usually there's got to be some kind of upgrade or some kind of change of know-how. Also, some type of shift of priorities. But especially in lasting, sustainable change, that change has to kind of also reach that level of identity. Yeah. Who am I? What is my purpose here? Which actually relates to the final level, the highest level, is this level of what we would call the bigger vision, which it goes beyond me personally. It's not about my personal mission. It's about the bigger purpose of what we are trying to achieve. So this kind of goes beyond the tip of the pyramid and to this notion of, well, there is there's a bigger purpose that we are here for. And again, that was one of the things that I learned so clearly in my own time in Scouts. Like I said, I sometimes found myself the de facto leader, not because I was bigger, smarter, or knew anything, but I had that sense of what are we trying to do?
Yeah.
And that sense of we and our purpose. People can sense that, and they know, okay, this is the one that if you have the vision and you know the vision, then that is going to be what guides everything else. And I think, again, as a consultant, we say you typically the most effective change goes from the vision to action. Meaning we know where we're trying to get to, we know who we are, we know why we're doing it, we know how to do it, and now we're going to take action. You can know how to do something and what to do, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to do the right things. So we say there's a difference between doing things right, which is, okay, I did my job, and doing the right things, which is
a different thing.
We're going to, it's actually effective to achieve the goal. And so I think
it's also a difficult thing to separate, because sometimes I can imagine as a consultant, I think I do the right thing, but is that the right thing to do?
Exactly. For me, there's this little joke, and I use sometimes to explain it to people in the healthcare world, which is about the surgeon comes out of the surgery and everybody's going, was it successful? And he goes, oh yeah, the operation was a complete success. The patient died, but the operation was a success. Meaning, okay, I did the right thing, so I did it right, but it was not the right thing.
No, it was not the right solution.
Yeah. And so I think that's what you get, that's the thing that moving from the vision into the action is going to ensure that you're doing the right things as well as doing them right. Yes. And I think both of those are important. And both of those are things that I learned also in Scouts. So I think as a consultant, we're saying I need to look at what's our desired state, what are we trying to get to, and how do those levels, we say they need to be aligned. That what I'm doing is aligned with the know-how that we have, with the values and the motivation, which is also aligned with who we are and what's the bigger purpose. Then you're looking at the present state. Well, so what's happening now?
What do we do with it?
What isn't aligned? What does need to be? What's missing that needs to be there in order for that to happen? And then what's going to be the path? How are we going to get there? What kind of training is going to be necessary? But sometimes it's not a function of just training, it's a function of role modeling. Sometimes it's a function of advising. One of my books, in fact, is called, the English title is From Coach to Awakener. And the idea there is a coach is somebody who's working on this concrete level. But sometimes I've got to kind of go beyond that. I've got to be a teacher, not just a coach. And sometimes I've got to be a mentor or an advisor or a role model. And this is, I think, something that's important for both consultants, but it's also, again, something that was so clear in Scouts, that you learn values not by being told what the values are, but you see it in the role models. You learn from the role models. And that's also not only where you pick up the values, but you pick up that sense of identity. And so that becomes an important thing for a consultant is I can't just explain to everybody you should have these beliefs and you should have these values. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. So
good luck with it.
Good luck. And so that's why I think in things like Scouts, it's very interesting because you get all of those levels. You're not just sitting around talking about things, you're doing things, you've got role models, you're developing a sense of a more full identity. And so when I say this idea, awakener means somebody is you're able to be awakened to a possibility that you maybe didn't know or was possible for you, or that you didn't even know existed. So I think that that's oftentimes what Scouts also can do for people. Like I say, for me, it awakened in me the realization that I could be a leader. I could be somebody who made a difference. I wouldn't have known that, without that. I would have just thought, well, I'm not, these other, the bullies maybe, they're the ones who are going to be the bosses, or
some became boss.
Some did, unfortunately. But again, what this is the interesting thing. They became boss, but I don't think they wouldn't in Scouts, because it doesn't work that way.
And for me, they didn't become leaders.
Yes,
they became the boss.
Right. The boss, but not the leader.
And for me, that's a difference.
Yeah.
You give me beautiful insights. Like one of the things that I remember is that Baden-Powell always would say, "Leave your camp better behind than you found it." And that could be on a foundation level. Make it clean when you leave. But it could be also on identity level that we have the responsibility to leave this earth a little bit better than we found it.
Better than we found it. I think,
the same as the book he wrote, Paddle Your Own Canoe.
Yes.
It's also taking that responsibility
and accountability.
Yeah. So for me, as a question still, if I think about the logical levels, and I think I understand them, what do you hear in companies, and how do you determine then where your attention would go? Because for me, it always helps to listen to where the problem lays, so I know better where to put my attention. How do you do that? Because that is also, I find difficult to explain to my fellow Scouts.
Well, so a couple of things. First of all, when I'm looking for things, I'm usually going to check from the highest levels first, right? Because if the highest levels are not clear, it doesn't matter. You can have, you can have all the funding, you can have all the resources, and they're going to be misused or wasted if these other levels are not aligned and not in place. So
so always an alignment, you
always
say.
Alignment is always the key. And then I think there are things that you can listen for, because sometimes I'm just asking. You can just ask people, is the vision clear? Is where and if people say yes, say, great, tell me if it's so clear, tell me what it is. I really like to know, inspire me with the vision.
Because for every NSO, that is okay to be different.
One of the interesting things, too, I like to say, and this is another thing I learned, is that when you have a vision, because, for example, like you were just saying, this idea of leaving the world a better place than you find it, that's a kind of a vision. But now that doesn't look like that could have many expressions. So I like to say, not everybody has to see the same picture, but you have to be looking in the same direction. So that's the thing. And so we start to listen, though, to you'll hear what I call resonance in that case. If people have to say the same thing, but there's a sense of resonance. And typically also that sense of vision is going to be accompanied by a sense of not only clarity, but of inspiration. So if you go to a company, that's one of the first things I'm looking for. Are people inspired? So I'll give you an example. Let me actually give you a little, both an example, first a metaphor and then an example, because sometimes it's easier to explain these levels in metaphor. So my metaphor is about there's these 6 stone workers, okay, and the stone workers, they all have the same tools and they all have the same material, right? So they've got their chisel and their hammer and they've got their blocks of stone. But you, as you watch them, you can see that there is a big difference in their in their quality of work.
Yeah.
You know, one does not do very well, and the other is like exquisite work. So let's say you come to the first person who does the worst work, and this person is kind of like, boom, you know. And you say, "What are you doing?" And the person says, "Well, I'm waiting for my shift to be over so I can go home."
Wait for my lunch break.
Right. So for this person, it's just environment. Okay. If you go to the second person's maybe a little bit more involved, and you say, "What are you doing?" The person says, "What does it look like I'm doing?" You know, I'm hitting the stone with my tool. That's what I'm doing. So that's just a behavior. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. You go to the third guy. Third person is more involved, more engaged, doing fairly decent work. And you say, "What are you doing?" And this person says, "Well, I'm using my skill to sculpt the stone." Mm-hmm. So for this person, it's an engagement of their capability.
Yeah.
And it's not just a behavior. It's my know-how. I'm using my know-how. Great. You go to the fourth person. This person is, really engaged, is involved, seems to be, quite motivated to their work. And you say, "Well, what are you doing?" This person says, "Well, I'm earning a living for my family. I'm putting my kids through school to have a life that I didn't get."
Yeah.
So for this person, it's about values, their personal values. Great. Wow. You go to the fifth person. Now this person is doing really exquisite work. You can tell that they're really engaged. And not only that, they're looking at the work of others and trying to encourage them. Come on, come on, let's do this. And you say to this person, "What are you doing?" And this person says, "Well, I'm a stonemason and I'm building a cathedral. That's what I'm doing."
Yeah. Step by step.
So for this person, it's a role and it's a mission. I'm building a cathedral, and I am a master mason. Mm-hmm. Wow. You go to the last guy. Now this person, it's like you can see that every tap, it's like their full attention is there. It's almost like, this stone is it's an expression of themselves in a way. Mm-hmm. And you ask this person, not only that, so not only is this person doing this, but the others are sometimes stopping to watch what he's doing because it's so exquisite, and he seems to be so, it's like so important. And you say to that person, "Well, what are you doing?" And this person says, "I'm creating a space where people can get close to their soul and close to God for 1,000 years to come. That's what I'm doing."
Wow.
Right. Now they're all using the same tool and have the same stone. What's the difference? Which level am I engaging, and which level am I aligned? Right. And for one, great, my family. That's great. But for that guy at the top, this is 1,000 years. Yeah. This is beyond my life. This is about this bigger vision. Yeah. And it's not even about that it's a cathedral. It's what is the cathedral for? It's for this thing. And what you're going to see is the greatest leaders are like that. That's this person. You have good leaders are like the fifth one. Right?
Yeah.
I know
build a beautiful cathedral.
I'm building a beautiful cathedral. But the ones who are, building the world for 1,000 years, like, let's leave the world a better place. Mm-hmm. That's where you see the leaders. And I think that's where the leadership of Scouts came from that kind of vision. Yeah. And of course, okay, guys, we're going to learn to be a team and work together. That's great too. But it's like, when you get that highest level,
there's so much more
than
just this.
And it's not only about the performance, it's about what it brings to you and what it brings to others. Yeah. So then given that, I said, so that's my metaphor. And then, so again, if you think about,
so we are so much more than just consultants.
Right, exactly.
We're
awakeners.
Yes.
But also, we say not only coach to awakener, but consultant to awakener. But I would say, then if you listen, the simple thing, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You listen to what your answer is. well, I'm doing this, or I'm engaging this, or I'm creating that. So that you hear that language is going to tell you, and of course, as I said, not only the language, but you can see people's level of engagement in what they're doing. So when example, I've done a lot of my own, business consulting work in Silicon Valley. Mm-hmm. Apple was my first corporate client back in 1980. Now, if you go to some, you can go to some. There's tons of technology companies in Silicon Valley. Not all of them become, trillion-dollar companies like Apple.
No, not everybody does.
What's the difference? So you go, for example, you can go to some company and you see the people at their desk, and you say, "What are you doing?" What does it look like I'm doing? I'm writing software. That's what I'm doing. If you go to a place like Apple, and I don't know if it's still like that, but I certainly know there have been places and times when it has been like that. You go to these people, they're at their computer, what are you doing? I'm changing the world, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Right. Now that,
put a dent in the universe.
Yeah, putting a dent in the universe. So that's how you start to listen. How do people talk about what they're doing? How do they express what they're doing? That's going to give you feedback right away. Mm-hmm. Well, which of these levels? Is it about I'm just using my know-how? Is I'm just like a robot doing a job? Is it this something that has personal value to me? I'm benefiting, or I'm contributing as well as benefiting. So that's how I would say, as a consultant,
you can listen already on which level it is.
And you can also observe the level of energy, you could say, of inspiration. How engaged are people? And even if something is difficult, that's the other thing. What happens when people meet difficulties? If it's just behavior, I'm out of here right away. Forget it. Yeah. Right. But if I have that vision, building these cathedrals maybe takes more than any person's lifetime. Yeah. So. This is what you also begin to realize, something, that those higher levels are so important, because that's also what's going to get you through the tough times. If I don't have something bigger than me, first of all, if I don't have something that's valuable to me, why would I possibly want to?
Why do I care?
And do something difficult or that is even risky? Yeah. When it's connected to those bigger levels, I do it because it's who I am. That's why I'm doing it. I couldn't not do it because it is everything in my DNA.
Incorporated.
Exactly. Yeah. And then when it's about something bigger than me, that's when you really have this powerful motivation. I was thinking, again, as a consultant, there was a very interesting study that was done. It's in a book by a guy named Adam Grant, who's he's a professor at Wharton Business School, but also is a consultant. He did this very interesting study where they did it with people who were telemarketers, and basically it was people who would call and ask for donations, for instance, for the university. Mm-hmm. So they decided, okay, we're going to do an experiment. I forget how many people they had, maybe 60 people or something. And so they took 20, they divided in 3 groups of 20. And the first group, what they did is they did your typical business thing. We're going to give you communication training, and we're going to give you a bonus if you raise more money. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yay. So they, and what they saw was, okay, there was an initial, increase in what they did, but then fairly soon it kind of went back down. Okay. The second group, they didn't do that. The second group, they brought in people who had been in that job, mm-hmm. and these people came in and they basically just talked about, well, yeah, it was a difficult job, but I learned so many things that benefited me later on in my career.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
So they, okay, that's interesting. So I'm kind of hearing that.
Nice carrot.
Yeah. The third group, what they did is they brought in people who had benefited from the donations. And these people came in and said how the work that these people had done changed their life positively. Mm-hmm. So, right, 3 different things, up the levels, right? Kind of capability, maybe values, identity, benefit, identity, and then what they call task significance, that what we're doing makes a difference. Then they just track their performance for the next 6 months. And again, that first group, they kind of went up again, and they kind of went up for a little while and went down. The second group sustained it a little longer before they finally went down. The third group spent 75% more time and raised twice as much money.
Wow.
So this is that interesting thing then about why that alignment and why moving from vision to action is important. So, but notice, you don't just tell people, hey, you're going to change people's lives. The people come in and awaken them. You know, so you've got to see and experience the benefit. You got to somehow know it, not as an idea, but as a felt experience. So I think this is important for consultants to keep in mind. Yeah, and thank you. So you inspired me as well, because I knew you were a scout. I knew you became an Eagle Scout, but I didn't know you were so still with your mind, and that you learned so much in your later life. So thank you so much for this time, and give us a left hand like scouts do. Thank you, Robert, for this time. And you're welcome. And I keep up the good work, everybody.
Thank you.
You make a difference. You're putting a dent in the universe.
Thank you.